Welcome to the Agency Founder Podcast. Are you ready to grow your marketing agency? We pull back the curtain to show you how real marketing agency founders struggled, built, and scaled their agencies. Practical advice, lessons learned, wins, and losses. We hold nothing back. Now your host, Jeremy Sonny.
Welcome to the Agency Founder Podcast by Moonshine Marketing. Every single week, we interview successful founders of marketing agencies at different points in their journey to pass on their victories, defeats, challenges, and lessons learned to help take your agency to new heights. This week, we're speaking with Andrew Sneddon of Freelance, an agency focused helping business owners work on their business instead of in it. Andrew, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Jeremy. Really appreciate it.
No, I really appreciate it. I know that we've known each other for a little while, jammed on some projects and know one another kind of from the Facebook ad buyers crew and that whole little mafia. But I don't know if it's mafia-esque, but definitely tight-knit community for sure. How'd you sort of find that? How'd you find that group?
When I first started freelancing, after I got out of the corporate environment, I was looking for resources to learn. And the Facebook ad buyers group really stuck out. And then they got into, their paid group and courses and masterminds. And yeah, I just got stuck in that loop. I went down that rabbit hole and it has benefited me immensely.
It's not the worst trap to get in. I'm in it myself, but yeah, I would love to, kind of introduce you a little bit more fully. If you could tell everybody kind of about yourself and what Freelance Crew does, from like a day to day and the sort of folks you work with, would love to kind of hear about that.
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Andrew Sneddon. I'm the owner and founder of Freelance Crew. I pretty much day to day, I help business owners fulfill tasks that they might otherwise not have the capacity to do themselves, and mostly marketing focused, but some business development as well. And another goal of mine is with my agency, is to help individuals establish a freelancing career for themselves, just because I just know from working in the corporate environment, the flexibility that, you're allowed in this kind of work is just, it's a lot easier than, the day-to-day grind in the corporate environment. And so, I would say in a nutshell, we want to help people. And one of my goals is to get people in a position where they can help other people. So yeah, that's basically the focus of my agency.
Yeah, I like that. So it's a lot less like, oh, we do Facebook ads or we do Google ads and we're the best at it. It's more like, we're problem solvers and we're going to kind of parachute in and help you figure out what you need, around this like marketing business development focus, and then kind of build this holistic team that can fulfill that need. Is that kind of a fair way of characterizing it?
Yeah, I would attribute that to my background. I was a business analyst in the corporate environment, and that was one of my jobs, was to kind of look at something from a 30,000 foot level and be able to identify the inefficiencies and the efficiencies, and create a process that makes that business more effective and more profitable. So yeah, when I came into doing freelancing and coming from my e-commerce background, I just kind of naturally fell into that role with other businesses.
Well, actually, that's a great, kind of segue into like learning a little bit more, about your background. And I know you've touched on it a few times, but, you started off in like as a corporate analyst, and then, what kind of spurned you into the marketing world? What made you take that jump? Just talk me through like kind of your personal journey of becoming a marketer and an agency owner.
Yeah, so I started working in the corporate environment in the financial industry, and I really enjoyed it. I had a good career. I had, all the good benefits. I really enjoyed that line of work, like doing what I was doing, process analyzing, and just being able to help other people, train other people. So yeah, I just came into a situation where I transferred to another company, and unfortunately, I just didn't jive with the management. I just got a manager that didn't see the potential in me, and I kind of got stuck. And so it got to a point where, and just to back up a little bit. So while I was in this, corporate environment, I had always had like an urge to do something creative, because I'm an artist. I'm very, I guess you can say, analytical and artistic. So I always wanted to do something else. So I started a company, Coastal Playground, where I was selling T-shirts to fund beach cleanups. And so that was how I got my feet wet in the e-commerce space. And then when it came to a point in my corporate career where I wasn't really satisfied, I guess you could say. And then I had the combination, I wasn't really satisfied creatively. I kind of had a bad manager. In the meantime, I had had two kids, so I wasn't able to spend a lot of time with them. So it just, the decision to start working for myself and figure out something, it kind of came to a boiling point, I guess you would say, where I ended up kind of quitting my corporate career abruptly. And yeah, it forced me into learning the skills. First, I had to freelance and help people. And then over time, I developed the skills to start my own agency.
No, I really like that. I think that, that kind of speaks to the importance of a lot of these that I do, people talk about the importance of culture and stuff like that, right? And it seems like having a bad culture where you're not growing or management isn't great can really force talented good people out. Is that a thing that as an agency owner that you're encountering these days, like trying to figure out like the right culture and the right people to fit into that culture and such?
Yeah, and I think my experience has definitely molded how I treat the people that work with me now. That experience of not having somebody value your skill set and not be able to find where you would excel. It's like now that I'm an agency owner, I guess you could say I could see how I need to really prop up people. I really need to give them all the resources they need. I really need to let them find their way. And so, yeah, I think that's helped my agency grow just because the people I work with, they're happy because they have the flexibility in their career and they're challenged. So I think that I've taken a lot from what I've learned in my corporate career and transitioned that over to my agency that I'm running now.
For sure. I love that. So you mentioned that, you started kind of freelancing, kind of figuring it out and pulling from a lot of different resources and things like that, right? Talk to me though about that moment where you're like, okay, I've been doing this. I think I could scale this up. What did that feel like? How did you come to that decision? Talk me through that process of going from, okay, I'm going to be a freelancer to like, I'm actually going to start an agency and try and like, scale this thing up. How did you land there?
Well, it took a while, that's for sure. When I first quit, I was fortunate enough to have a little bit of savings, so I had a little bit of a cushion for a few months. But I started working part time at like a night gig, just so I could make some extra cash, so I, could keep some money coming into the household. Because keep in mind, I had a wife, house, two kids, so it was like I definitely had to keep money coming in. So I took a job washing boxes at night, like just to make it happen.
During my first startup, I stocked ice cream like from 2 a.m. until like 7 a.m. And then I would like start work on my startup, like, way back in like 2012, 13. So I get it.
Yeah, that was around the same time that I was doing it. And so I was able to take my kids out of daycare and watch them. So that saved me a few grand a month. And then I would work at night while their mom was home so she could watch them. And then during the day while I was watching them, I would kind of I would do gigs on the side, right? Like, so if I had an opportunity to take a coaching call or I had an opportunity to write an article, like I did it. It eventually came to a point where I knew enough where I started actually getting contracted from businesses to start doing more and more of their marketing services. So it started with me like writing a blog, and then they're like, "Hey, can you send a newsletter? Hey, do you know how to do website stuff? Oh, well, by the way, have you ever run ads before?" And so it just kind of all I started learning those skill sets by just having people ask me to take on those tasks in their business because they were satisfied, with the more menial jobs that I was taking on, right? So that's I would say that's when it kind of hit me. I was like, wait a second, like I only have so much time in the day, and if I want to take on more and more people and help more and more people, I'm going to have to put people in a position where they have my skill sets so they can help other businesses. And so that's when I introduced my brother-in-law. Now he's doing it full time. My sister-in-law, my other brother-in-law. I also have several other contractors who are helping me. So it just got to a point where I just didn't have enough time in the day. So I started hiring people to do the work, and that's how everything kind of just started.
So that's really interesting. I think that speaks to a few things I want to touch on. One, which is, you see a lot of times people that are starting like ad agencies or whatever, really like it's freelancers that are calling themselves agencies, right? They like take a course or, they hear about like some dude that they know that's making like, $50,000 a month while working 4 hours a week on the beach sort of thing. And they're like, oh, this is great. I'm going to do this. Like yours though was very like a very like grit oriented, like figure it out on your own. Right. And like, kind of a lot of like very practical DIY. Do you think that that's like shaped, kind of your approach in like a positive way?
Oh, yeah. So, and how that kind of came about was me starting my own e-commerce store. I would get home from my job at 5 o'clock, take care of my kids, and then about 8, 9 o'clock, I would start working on my website, trying to figure out email marketing. And so basically, I learned everything the hard way with my business. Like I learned through YouTube University, right? Like how to build a website, how to send an email, how to install a piece of code. And when I first started, it wasn't as easy as it is now, right? Like I had to actually like write code and do that kind of stuff. And so I learned all of that the hard way through my business. It cost me a lot of money, but then when I got to working with other businesses, I kind of already had an idea of where they needed to go, so I think that really helped out. It was never really a hard sell. It was just kind of like, hey, I've done, X, Y, and Z. These are kind of the results I saw with this. I see an opportunity here with your business, right? That we might be able to take advantage of. It just seems when I present it like that to people, they're happy to work with me. And yeah, I have a lot of really good, long lasting relationships because of that.
I love that. That's really interesting. I think too that it seems like you're a really relationship oriented person, right? Like your first expansion was like family members, whether by blood or marriage, right? It seems like that's kind of the way that you chose to expand. There's a lot of people that say like you shouldn't maybe partner up with like your best friend or like, family members, like complicates business, but you seem to take the opposite and obviously are thriving. What are your thoughts on that?
I actually listened to a lot of people for a long time. Like you don't really want to get close relationships involved in your business, right? And like I took that as scripture, right? I was like, that's just how it is. No, I probably shouldn't do that. But then it got to a point where I needed somebody like when my business started getting to a certain point, I needed somebody who I could trust, that I could trust with basically my family, right? Because when I'm handing over somebody a client, and if they don't treat that client as if I would, then it could have a negative effect on my family, right, and my business. And so I don't know. It felt more natural to trust somebody who is literally like family blood with that. And yeah, it's just worked out. And I've always just had the mentality, and we all kind of have this mentality. It's like we don't need to check each other, I guess, or micromanage each other because we all are looking towards the same goal. So once we let something go to somebody, it's like we can fully trust that person to take it on as if it were their own. So yeah, it's just worked out really well for us. And not only that, but now several members of my family they have more freedom with their time. They make more money. Some of them are starting families. So it's just they don't have to go through a lot of the shit that I went through. Excuse my language, but that just makes me feel really good is being able to help somebody and put them in a position to not have to worry about like getting their power shut off, right? Because they have so many bills or something along those lines, like some of the stuff that I had to deal with. So, um, yeah, it's super rewarding. Like making good money and being able to work for myself is great, but I get even more enjoyment out of being able to put other people in that position.
For sure. I love that. So, kind of transitioning from like, the philosophical, like practically, what does running a business like this that's, and I don't mean this in a bad way at all, like kind of a jack of all trades, it seems like, right? Because you do like a ton of different like marketing, business development focused stuff, and I like that actually. I think that sort of, really competent generalist approach can be like extremely valuable to people, especially, kind of smaller, medium sized businesses that maybe are trying to kind of figure it out. What does the day to day like look like of that though? Kind of when you're trying to organize those processes and like kind of manage diverse teams in that way.
I mean, it really all comes down to communication, honestly, and relationships and that trust. Like, I feel like all of these different tasks, like if I can find somebody that I trust and they're competent in that particular skill, yeah, like I just let it go. You know what I mean? Like If I trust somebody, I get a good feeling from somebody. I know they show me that they're competent in that particular skill. I try my best just to let it go. And if I find that if I let it go, I have a lot less to manage at the top, right? Because I gave it to a person that I trust. And that's what I've kind of been doing is I find somebody like, for instance, my sister-in-law she's really good at articles, and she's really good at writing and just communicating. Yeah, she excels in email drips and blogs. And then my brother-in-law, Caden, he's really analytical and also he's really good at building relationships. So he's really good at being an ads manager and working things out with our clients. So, and then I have other people, right, who help me with other clients, right, who are extremely competent and who really, like at the end of the day, make us look good because we have found somebody who can service that business at the highest level.
So you're saying that like the kind of key to running an agency that's laid out in this like sort of freelance way that does like different things is to find people who are good people, understand their strengths, and just kind of let them do their thing. Is that kind of a fair characterization of what you're saying?
Yeah, one of the things that we always kind of joke about in our agency is staying in our lane. We all do have very specific skill sets, but we are, I guess you would say well-rounded. But we do have a skill that we're particularly strong at, right? So if we can all kind of stay in that lane with a skill we're particularly strong at, our business thrives. And one thing that we've discussed is like once we start kind of switching lanes a little bit, things start getting kind of confusing. Like, people's roles start to get a little bit blurry. So yeah, we just have found that. And one thing too is like somebody today might be like, hey, I'm really like stoked on content and writing, but then they want to learn a new skill set so they can switch lanes. But it's more of a strategic thing, right? It's like something we would plan out. But yeah, it's worked really well for us. And everybody's kind of happy with because they can focus and thrive on one particular skill set.
No, I like that. It seems to be a common thread among, the successful people that I speak with is, understanding what people are good at, letting them do their thing, but, kind of letting different folks be kind of kings of their own little kingdoms, right? Letting them, really thrive inside of like what they, what they're best at. So I really like that. I guess as I'm thinking about that, what is sort of the biggest lessons learned, that you've come so far? And that can be like great lessons like, oh, this was awesome, I'm glad we did this, or like painful lessons, like, oh, I wish we would have never done X thing, right? Like tell me about those sort of like, hard lessons learned that you would want to pass to like other people that are freelancing or, thinking about starting an agency, right? Or maybe already have started an agency or down the road, Yeah, tell me about that.
One of I would say the biggest lessons I've learned is treat everything like it's your first project and be humble, right? It's like, I know it's like the Biggie quote from one of his songs, but that's, I would say, is probably one of the biggest things is I think that sometimes we can get a little bit of an ego because of what our capabilities and what we're able to do, and like sometimes we might overlook like a small business who just needs something basic like to really thrive. And so if we're able to kind of like just be humble and just treat everything like it's our very first business we're going to start running, then I feel like we can help people better that way. The next thing would be, you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, is that when we first started, we were very like task oriented, very numbers oriented, data oriented, because we were focused on just the numbers and improving the numbers and making the business better. But one of the lessons that we've learned more recently is that building a relationship with that particular business that you're going to be servicing or that person you're going to be helping is just as important, if not more important, than any results or data or numbers you're going to get. A relationship will retain a client more than great results, is what I've seen.
Yeah, I've actually heard similar things from other people. There was somebody that gave a presentation at a conference, and I don't remember which conference it is, but they basically said they ran an analysis, right, on clients' results versus what their stated goals were, and they found no correlation between retention and performance. But the only correlation that they did find was how highly they rated the accounts person that they worked with. And that was literally it. So long as you hit your goals, right? So long as you hit that like threshold of like, this has to like make sense business wise. After that, it was relationship driven, which I think is super interesting, that like even in 2020, right, as we sit here and like everything's automated and all of that, like relationship still drives so much of business. And is it fair to say that that's kind of what your experience has been as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. And we've learned more and more over the past couple of years of running our agency that is a top priority now. And that's why we have direct communication channels with all of our clients. Some people think we're crazy because we do that, but it has increased our retention tenfold, just because that person feels like they have somebody in their corner, right? And that's really what it comes down to. It's like somebody who is willing to push you, when the fight's getting hard, or throw in the white towel, when you're not realizing that you need that, you need to quit like a particular, task or whatever. But yeah.
I like that. So how do you like, beyond just like open, clear, and, intentional communication? I mean, that's probably the cornerstone of it, but how do you go about building those like really great client relationships?
Connecting dots. So just, if I see an opportunity for a client, any opportunity for a client, I help them out with it. Just as an example, I have a real estate agent client and a mortgage client who both are generating the same leads in the same area, and they had no idea, right? So we connected those two people. Now they're more effective at their jobs because they, not only have more resources to service those leads, but now they have more leads because they're kind of, cross promoting with each other. So that kind of situation solidifies that relationship with that person, because now not only do we have the relationship with the client, but the clients have relationships with each other, and they are both working with us. So that's kind of one of the things. Another example would be if I saw an opportunity for one of my clients to maybe improve their website. I would point them in the right direction to a resource that could get that done, and at an inexpensive rate, right? Like, so just thinking outside the box, and really like kind of putting myself in the position of owning that company, and how I would expect or how I would want my account manager to act with me. That's just kind of the attitude that we take on.
It sounds like a lot of proactive problem solving, right? Just looking for things beyond just what exactly you were hired for to like go out and, solve this for people. Is that kind of a fair way of characterizing it?
Yeah, you could say we're like the eyes on the back of their head, right?
Right. I like that. I like that. That's really cool. Well, Andrew, this has been absolutely incredible. Really going to take a lot of these lessons, especially around, empowering people in your team, and also just being a helpful resource to clients as a way of like growing relationships. I'm going to take that to heart. I always let pitch for 1 or 2 minutes anything that they want, whether it's a business or something else, here at the end. So I'm going to let you do that real quick.
Well, I'll keep it nice and short. If you're a business owner and you happen to need help with anything, or maybe you just want a second set of eyes, we're here to help. That's what we do day in and day out. Like I mentioned in the podcast, we have all kinds of amazing resources, amazing talented freelancers that can insert themselves into your business and improve your results. So yeah, if you need help, just feel free to reach out. You can contact us at freelancecrew.biz. That's freelancecrew.biz.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Andrew.